the board does reserve the right to change the order of items on the agenda. And if there are any recommendations, they usually will come in the beginning when we first adopt our agenda or the consent agenda. Let's start with our tribute this evening. In partnership with tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. With that, may we please have a roll call? Mrs. Valenzuela? I'm sorry, Valencia.
Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno.
Presente.
Mr. Regional Carrillo.
Present.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa.
Present.
Dr. Alicia Vink. And Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Present. Dr. Vink is not here right now, but I have been in touch with her and we do expect her later on, probably. With that, let's move on to the adoption of our agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented? I would like to put some items for discussion. I would like to table item F1, which is our minutes from our April 11th meeting. We received them a week ago and that's not enough time for us to review and also prepare for a board meeting. So if we can just schedule that for May 9th. And the other item I would like to pull is H2, which is an action item around our student outcome focused governance. I just want to let my colleagues know that I have not been able to complete some materials in order for you to review the comments that were received during our community input sessions. So I don't want us to make decisions without us having all that information present. So I would just ask that we be able to move that to our May 9th agenda. Thank you.
Can I add one more item? And I want to make sure that we're in the right space. Also, we have consent item 17, F17. We will bring that to you on the May 9th for the overnight field trip with all the supporting documentation.
Perfect. All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda as amended? Removing items F1, F17 and H2. Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Valencia, will you please have a roll call vote to adopt our agenda as amended?
Yes. Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno.
Yes.
Mr. Regional Carrillo.
Yes.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa.
Yes.
And Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our motion passes and we can move on to our Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Manley, please lead us. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Manley. And that we'll move on to item A6 for our awards, recognitions, and announcements.
Thank you, President Trujillo and board members. Today, again, we come to you with a lot to celebrate. I'd like to first give the floor to Mr. Manley for our first item. Mr. Manley.
Will do. I was just noticing the twilight zone-ish effect there. So let's not let that distract. Okay, so on Friday, April 14th, the district hosted a ribbon cutting ceremony for a new sensory room to serve students with neurodivergence and other behavioral health challenges. The sensory room is designed to help students with sensory processing disorders develop coping and self-regulation skills to be more successful in the classroom. The sensory rooms were made possible through IDEA, American Rescue Plan, or ARP funds. I think we had them. There we go. Cool.
Yay, we want you to take all that. Yay. Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Diane Salazar to share with us about Faith North celebration.
Yeah. Good evening, Board President Trujillo, members of the board, members of cabinet. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. So the week of April 1st to 7th is Week of the Young Child, and we celebrated at Faith North with specially themed days, which is celebrated in that way nationwide. We had Music Monday, where students created musical instruments, and we had a music parade at the end of the day. On Tuesday, Tasty Tuesday, they cut, washed, and did taste tests on different items from our school garden. On Work Together Wednesday, our preschoolers created a class mural or a class tower. On Artsy Thursday, the students created artwork in various media and created class murals, and they had a gallery walk. The following week on Friday, we had our first annual Spring Fling Dance. It was so fun. I really encourage you to come out. It was just a joy, absolute joy to see them all dancing. And we had 55 families attend. So we were really pleased with the turnout. Thank you.
Thank you. And I get to share about the Phoenix One Foundation that hosted their annual golf tournament to benefit Phoenix #1 district. Funds raised are awarded to Phoenix #1 teachers and staff through grants for parent education and engagement projects, technology, resources for students, or cultural enrichment. We appreciate the foundation's continued support of Phoenix #1, along with the many partners who participated in the golf tournament to benefit our students and families. I also want to thank our Vice President Bueno for serving in the foundation and making this also possible for us, and President Trujillo and Board Member Carrillo for attending. We had a good time as observers, and I did make the commitment to join next time. So I am out there looking for tutoring sessions for golf. It was a really good time. So thank you again. I now would like to turn it over to Dr. Alshire, and he will share with us our very last event.
And I'm extraordinarily excited to talk about the wonderful work that's being done at Emerson. So tomorrow, April 26th, Emerson School is hosting an Autism Awareness Day to celebrate neurodiversity and raise awareness about autism. Thanks to a partnership with Courtesy Chevrolet, classes will decorate a puzzle piece that includes an autism fact, and the students will assemble the puzzle pieces in the courtyard. They will also engage in augmented communication devices donated by Courtesy Chevrolet. Super cool. And then there's an autism appreciation walk just in time before it gets too hot, begin at 10:30 a.m. And finally, the school will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony at 12:30, also for their new sensory room. So we really hope that you are able to join us for this very special day, and congratulations to the entire Emerson community for this. I'm going to clap. Yeah.
Those are all of the awards, recognitions, and announcements for tonight from us. Thank you.
With that, are we motioning to adjourn to a public hearing? Okay, we're just calling it. Got it. As part of the Indian education grant requirements, we will move to a public hearing now on April 5th at the Indian Education Parent Meeting. The Family Task Force made a budget request to provide staffing and supplies to meet monthly with families, to support enrollment in the program, to examine performance data and identify students in need of direct student support, and to respond to identified student and family needs. Also, to provide direct support to students in ensuring students are enrolled, attending, and achieving both social and academic growth. At this public meeting today here, April 25th, we now welcome any comments about this recommendation. Do we have any public comments regarding this item? Hearing none, we will resume our board meeting and move on to our superintendent's report. Thank you again, President
Trujillo, and our board members, audience. On tonight's consent agenda, we have an action item to purchase 2 electrical buses for our bus fleet. This purchase aligns with our initiative for sustainable and zero emission vehicles. And these buses are 84 passenger vehicles with the latest and safest technology for our student riders. The purchase includes 2 electrical chargers that can support charging locally at plant services. Also, we want to share our gratitude to our business partners for their recent donations. We have our Phoenix One Foundation that has donated $20,000 to be used for our greatest needs across the district. Let's give them a hand. And Tree Matters and APS for donating trees and volunteers to beautify our campus by planting trees at Bethune School. Give them a hand as well. And on Friday, April 14th, some of our students had their artwork acknowledged on display at the Allen House, and our students and families were invited to an art gallery walk and an evening of celebration. I'd like to pause here to see if we have any staff or students that we can recognize for their artwork. We're going to send you a lot of love as we can see your artwork right now displayed in our boardroom. Let's send them some love. If they get to watch, we'll send this to them. Please make sure you take a minute to enjoy all of our award-winning art pieces. And the month of April is Autism Awareness Month. And we have had a number of events where we honored and celebrated autism awareness. We want to make sure that we acknowledge our new sensory room at Hurd, and I hope you all are able to join us at Emerson School as they have developed the day to bring awareness and celebrating students and teachers. And that is all for the superintendent report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davila Hagiga. I appreciate all the fun information. It is lovely to see all of this artwork here today, and it was a wonderful event to attend in the Garfield neighborhood. Do we have any board member reports this evening? Yes, I would like to share an update on our student outcome focused governance cohort that President Trujillo and I participate in. For the last couple of months, we've been practicing the guardrails in our goals, but we're kind of ahead of our cohort since we're about to adopt them. So what we actually learned this week was how to develop our monitoring schedule. So that's been interesting and fun to develop. So I look forward to us adopting our monitoring schedule. And then I did want to also just talk about the Phoenix One Foundation golf tournament last Thursday. Thank you to all our partners who joined us. We were able to raise $40,000 in support of our school district. And then this Saturday, I got to also speak to the Listo cohort about our student outcome focused governance framework. And I just really stressed the importance of the community engagement part, going out to the community and hearing from them as well. So that's my board update, and I look forward to Friday's tree planting. All right, any other board reports?
I have some reports. Hi, I'm Erica, and I want to just speak on, there is a new discussion collaboration that we've been talking with Aguila Youth Leadership Institute. Not sure if you guys have been familiar or aware of it. This is a institute that has been around for a number of years. I've been very fortunate to be part of their mentorship program for the STEM program, as my background is in technology. So I've had the opportunity to speak to a lot of 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, girls that are wanting and have a desire to go into the T, which is a technology part of the STEM program. We're offer a great opportunity to attend one of their breakfasts of champions, which is basically in recognition of the leadership that they have done and all the alumni that have actually passed through the Institute and what they're doing today. So I'm hoping that in the future, some of our students are going to be part of this breakfast and be announced, and we get to hear all the cool things they're doing with our community. It's basically, you know, they're being taught career opportunities, college career scholarships, and just to build their confidence and resilience on, anyone, if they work really hard, they can get a scholarship and they can continue their education. So we will be bringing the day in 2 weeks, May 5th, actually a week from this Friday. We will be at the breakfast, and then after the breakfast, depending on the details that Dr. Alshire and Dr. Haygood have coordinated, we will bring Tomas Valles. He is the main character of the movie McFarlane USA. Not sure if you guys are aware of him and what he has done. And he's here to basically continue the conversation of leadership and students and moving on to higher education. So I'm really excited to start this collaboration with the Aguila Leadership Institute. Thank you so much for your support as well.
I just want to thank Emerson for the big celebration. Good evening, Dr. Vink. Regarding Autism Awareness Month, I'm really pleased and excited to hear what's going on over there. They also implemented a Spirit Week for every day this week, and I can't tell you how much that makes me happy, because I definitely fall on the neurodivergent spectrum there, and without certain supports and awareness and help from your surroundings, boy, do I struggle. So I can only imagine what that feels like, again, as students or adults that have to operate daily. So the more awareness we have, the more supports and things we can implement, because knowledge is power. So I plan to be at the tree planting ceremony. I plan to be at the Aguila leadership event and the special day at Emerson tomorrow. So I hope I'm not forgetting anything. Please come out and volunteer for our tree ceremony if you can. And do you have any board reports this evening? Wonderful. With that, we will move on to our next item, which is our community communications. This time is for public comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically on our agenda. The communications will be read, not read aloud. If we had any electronic ones, but I don't think we have any. Okay, perfect.
No.
Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes this evening. So I would like to welcome Nicole Goodwin up to discuss meet and confer and field trips. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, President Trujillo, governing board members, Superintendent Hagigat, and cabinet members. My name is Nicole Goodwin, and I'm a proud teacher at Whittier School. And PECTA treasurer. I want to thank our board for voting at the last meeting to approve PECTA's meet and confer proposals. We hope that they help retain our highly qualified staff members. I would also like to ask that the district reconsider not allowing field trips for the rest of the school year. To my knowledge, staff were not informed that there was a cutoff date to request one, leaving classes without a field trip, and the 8th graders at my school without our traditional end of year field trip. Since we have so many Title I students in our district, field trips have a major impact on learning. A teacher at my school shared that math students could not answer how to measure an elephant with a ruler or a yardstick because most students had never seen an elephant in real life. Canceling field trips also affects our bus drivers, cutting their hours. Please allow our students to take field trips for the remainder of the school year. They need them, they've earned them, and they deserve them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goodwin. We have a public comment. May we please welcome Ms. Tiffany Beeson to the dais.
It's Tiffany Benson. So, PESD Governing Board. So the Governing Board in June 2020, this includes now President Trujillo, you signed a George Floyd resolution to quote, abolish systemic barriers to Black student success. A few weeks ago, board member Vink bragged about the resolution, but she knows nothing about being a Black student in Arizona schools or being Black, period. I'm offended that any board member assumes a godless organization like BLM represents my community. The majority of Black people I know, including liberals, are not Marxists who want to abolish families and police. The existential threat to the Black community is not racism or white supremacy. Rather, it's voting for leftists like some on this board. PESD's Black student population is 10%. If they can't succeed, it's a leadership problem 100%. This board is also wasting tax dollars to the tune of $14K per student. Testing is in the bottom 50% with 28% math proficiency and 32% reading. Those are Fs, as in failure. Meanwhile, childish board members donned cat ears in solidarity with a bigot in WESD who discriminates against Christians, another group I also belong to. As a highly educated, conservative, law-abiding patriot who happens to be a Black woman, I say this leadership is a joke in PESD. The propaganda and virtue signaling is crass. School districts are not the place for identity politics. When you stop all your talking and playing, you need to resolve to pull this district out of the gutter of America's public education system.
Thank you very much. May we please welcome Ben Larenby to discuss health and well-being and the safety of our students. My apologies for not being able to pronounce your last name. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
That's okay. I get it wrong sometimes myself. So howdy, y'all. I want to speak tonight about the resolution passed last year titled Supporting LGBTQIA Students. This board passed last year. Currently, this board describes any anti-trans and anti-child privacy legislation as an attack on the safety of trans and LGBTQIA youth, and further promises to oppose any legislation that infringes upon their rights to privacy and autonomy. One Arizona bill that, of course, this board objects to would require teachers or any administrators to inform parents if a student changes their pronouns or gender identity. Now, of course, some would say this unnecessarily puts trans youth in harm's way of parents that would not accept them. But regardless, the reason I bring this up is because your resolution is actually nothing unique, as districts across the country have adopted similar stances. For example, like in Appomattox County in Virginia, where a few months ago, a student named Sage revealed to her counselors that she was transgender and wished to transition and change her pronouns. Electing to keep this information private, the administrators withheld her status from her parents. They instead decided to refer Sage to so-called gender-affirming websites with anonymous chat rooms for support during her transition. It was through one of these chat rooms that she met her predator, lured her away from her home, and abducted her. She was found and returned home months later, but after suffering horrific sexual and physical abuse for months on end. All of this was possible because the people in charge of her safety wouldn't believe that her parents wanted to protect her after she said she wanted to transition. Now, there is no one on this board that isn't horrified by this information. And there is no one here that has not at some point pledged to protect our children. But districts that pursue gender-affirming policies are broadcasting to the world that their most vulnerable students and transgender identifying students are vulnerable, are free to share intimate details about their sexuality and identity with adults who are not their parents with complete anonymity. And the most evil men imaginable will take advantage of this. If you actually want to keep students safe, might I recommend starting with trusting their parents? Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we please have Brooke come to the dais regarding the governing board LGBTQIA plus policy.
Good evening. Hello, board. I wish I was here under better circumstances. However, I want to quickly highlight a few points from the board's supporting LGBTQ students resolution. The policy states, research shows that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender-related school victimization is strongly linked to young adult mental health challenges and risk for STDs and HIV and so on. But isn't this an elementary school district? Why are you sexualizing schools for children? And why are you so focused on LGBTQ policies when you could be focused on policies that actually benefit children in the schools? Put yourselves in the student's position. Do you think children are really concerned about this? I mean, you are shoving it down their throats so they don't have a choice. I'm here to speak out for these children and their parents. I'm here as an older sister to a 10-year-old brother. This disgusts me. Please leave it up to the parents to discuss this with the children if they want. It's the district's job to educate, not indoctrinate. Please do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we please have Mr. Valentin Hernandez to talk about our field trips.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. Board and Dr. I don't want to mispronounce it, but Haigiha. Good afternoon. My name is Valentin Hernandez. I am a parent of and reading specialist of Whittier. Well, the reason I am here is to be the voice of my son and my students. Before I go on, I would like to ask if you could remember your favorite school field trip. Reason asked is because this year, after overcoming a pandemic, our kids are once again limited to enjoy learning, but most importantly, connected to their learning to the real world. That's what we want to do, connect learning to the real world. How can this be possible being the year 2023? Moreover, most if not schools are Title I, and sadly, this means that our students might not experience a field trip due to the lack of family money. Some of our parents work more than one job or are unable to pay multiple entrance tickets to the museum, sports event, aquarium, amusement park, you name it. With this said, our students are exposed to learning only through one method, the classroom. This means parents are pushed away from participating in a field trip. How sad. Last, I wish our kids could have a voice on this topic, since some of them are denied to go to their field trip after state testing. It's 2023 and they should be heard too. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will move on. Would you like any opportunity to discuss once we're personally named in a public comment, we have a space. Okay. I don't either. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda as amended this evening?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote? Mrs. Valencia to approve our consent agenda as amended.
I'm sorry, I did want to discuss and update Dr. Vink that we pulled the minutes from April 11th meeting. We pulled the field trip to Edison because I didn't have the supporting documents. And so that's the amended. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Bueno. So roll call to request approval of consent agenda. Ms. Jessica Bueno.
I think we needed a second.
I seconded already.
Yes.
Mr. Reginald Carrillo.
Yes.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa.
Yes.
Dr. Alicia Vink.
Yes.
And Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye, yes. With that, our motion does pass. Thank you very much. The board does get to review our consent agenda prior to our board meetings. So we
are able to approve that in one fell swoop, so we can move on to more pressing items that focus on our students. So for our next item, we will discuss item G1, the receive and discuss classification and compensation study findings. Who will be presenting this evening?
We have Mr. Manley that has the opportunity to share with us this evening.
Welcome, thank you.
Let me get through my consent agenda items. Hold on. Hold on, still got a few. Fantastic. I think that there might be an issue with the technology for Mr. Jacobson to participate, but I think we can get him on the phone as well. Fantastic. So
it looks like the sound is a challenge for us right now. Is that accurate information? So we may see him, or we may just be able to have him on the phone like you suggested.
that sounds good. Vance, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, yes, I can hear all of you. I would ask that same question. Can you hear me?
Please hold. How about now? Can you give it a shot now?
And if I can get an affirmative from you, whether you can hear me, I'm getting some feedback.
Well, I tell you what, how about I try to, is that me?
And you're out.
Woo! Time to tap out. But
Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Can we have you turn off your own technology and just stay with the phone?
Yeah, I will do that. Okay, now, can you hear me via the phone?
oh. Is your Zoom muted, Vance?
It is now. Go ahead and speak to us just for a test.
Are you able to hear me on the phone?
Yes, we are.
So without,
Outstanding. This is a great effort in everybody for adapting to the to be able to make this presentation. But if you can hear me, or if there is just if you can't, just holler. Well, that would be hard to do if you couldn't hear me. But anyway, President Trujillo and board and cabinet members, this is a presentation that I have been waiting for quite some time. And what it is that I'm here to introduce the results of a compensation review that fully impacts all Phoenix Elementary District employees. And what is so significant about this effort is that we are proposing and hope to be moving forward on two significant items that that are really leading edge in salary administration and getting all employees, regardless of what level on the same playing field as far as compensation philosophy, both internally and competitively. And those two are that there will be a concept of a master salary schedule. And the second item is an innovative approach to teacher pay, which we are just very proud to be able to be a part of introducing. And I am having trouble moving the page.
There we go.
So essentially, I'm on the second page of the chart, and let's see here. Okay, and if you can see that second page on the chart, our process to reflect on an earlier presentation we made this year is really for four key items. First one is internal equity. That should be the primary standard of any organization, regardless of how competitive you are. And that is that jobs are properly aligned from low to high based on their skill, difficulty, effort, and work environment and accountability. The second item is the external labor market. And here's where we go back a few years and we look at what the Phoenix market was like in 2018, which was really very flat, very difficult to recruit, that pay practices back then were really poorly designed to recognize higher level skill within occupations. We have emerged from that environment, and through the study of more than a dozen other districts and other industries, we feel that what I'll be talking about in a few moments on how we respond to the external market, we feel that it's an affordable yet aggressive position to be in, and blending that with internal equity will make for a very strong program. And speaking of which, in terms of program design, as I had mentioned, a master salary schedule, this whole project process is designed specifically to connect all employee groups onto a single grand schedule, and individual employee groups can spin off that. And the way that is done is that from the center of the salary range, which is the target that you would want to have for your competitive philosophy, everything moves off of that and will give you 10 months, 11 months, it'll give you hourly, and it'll give you annual salary for all positions within that competitive philosophy. Communications, once the math and the system design and the plan design are done, communications is really going to be the most important thing as we move forward here in the next couple of weeks and the beginning of the following school year. That so everybody really has a right, and they need to understand that the philosophy of competitiveness and internal equity, but also how career growth, how career ladders will work moving forward. On the next slide, we talked about a little bit about findings. And when we looked at the marketplace, we by virtue of different employee groups, we found that supervisory and management and senior professional positions were sitting at between ranges and salaries between the 37th and 40th percentile of the market. Educational professionals were sitting in the 50th to 55th with ranges in that. Now, 50th percentile means median, and we'll refer back to that momentarily. And that group is that way because of the intense competition and some shortages for key educational professionals. Teachers, the next group, 37th percentile. That means that 5/8 of the competitive market pays higher for the same start rate. When you combine all forms, stipends, state pass-throughs, 301, site-based, you name it, salary gets up to 50th percentile. But I caution all of our clients in education that some of those sources of funds may not be with us very long. Now, if we take base salary plus all the site, the site and state pass-throughs that are long term, the teachers are sitting at the 43rd percentile in the market. Over half the market is paying higher for those same teachers. Stipends, they are noticeably above average use of stipends, and we can see why that's happened, to be able to pull money from a variety of resources, to be able to start with our very low base salary and actually offer as competitive an opportunity as we can with new and existing teachers to keep from having turnover. Now, on the support staff side, we found that salary ranges were slightly below medium, 45th percentile. And while salaries varied a lot, and that had to do with the length of time people have in the job, on average, they're back down to the 35th percentile, where we saw teachers and administrators. All told, the message in the district is that we need to not only upgrade salary ranges, but we also need to upgrade salary practices to get people moving through the range. And as an anecdote to this, our strong recommendation is that the salary ranges will be approximately representing the 60th percentile in the market. And that means that we would, when people are in the middle of the salary range, they would be paid roughly ahead of 60% of the competition. And I was asked the question, why the 60th as opposed to just the average or the median? And what I've learned over the years, working in your market and working in other markets up and down the coast and elsewhere in the country, is that when you have a district where maybe it's either a stable, built out, or a declining district, there are also financial and demographic challenges, which I believe takes a special skill set for people to work within to be able to deliver education. It came clear to us that bottom line is that within Phoenix #1, it's a more challenging environment to teach and work. And there are other districts that share that, and we have made that loud and clear to their boards on why they should have their salary scheduled, at a certain place. But it is, and you can see that you can see that elsewhere, outside of the greater Phoenix area. On the next slide, we will have a little bit more information on the findings that have to do with the job alignment and some administrative processes. Interestingly enough, within the tools the district has had to work with, the relative alignment of jobs from low to high, the least skilled, least difficult, up to the most complicated jobs, has been held together over the last four or 5 years in relatively good shape. And the needed alignments really come with job design phasing, just because of downsizing or just because the needs change. But those are all things that we are closing in on taking care of to have a very well thought out, publishable job classification listing that goes along with the salary schedule. Now, we did see some issues, and these issues are just not Phoenix Elementary. These happen whether they happen at a hospital or whether they happen at another school district or a private company. But there's been we saw a little bit of a precedent of aligning compensation by title as opposed to job content, or by funding source, which both of those need to revert back to setting alignments based on job content. Internal equity. We did throughout this process. We looked beyond just getting jobs aligned right, but with inside the range, we looked at if there was any patterns based on gender, race, and we're very happy to say we found none. And that the human resources and the other offering departments have, in our opinion, done a good job of looking at the person's qualifications and doing to the best of their ability, matching starting salaries with that. One of the significant items that we found that was really the biggest contributor to the variance in pay has been caused by the lack of administrative processes, and I can explain that real quickly. Somebody gets promoted into a senior level position, and it's their first senior level position, and current policy says they start at the minimum of the salary range. Somebody else in a substantially similar position comes with experience on the outside. There is more flexibility in hiring them further into the range, and if done properly, that's okay. The problem that we saw was that the person that got hired at the minimum never really gets off the minimum, because everything changes by a cost of living increase, and the gap between those people doesn't change. When the whole purpose of the salary range, the gap between those people needs to change. That person at the lower end needs to catch up to the person at the upper end, and that's what a salary administration program should be facilitating. And we have a solution for that. But it'll be in a few slides from here. So we've talked about that. There's also some issues that we'd be working on. The internal advancement processes, having clearer definitions built into the job description, defining a career ladder, like an entry-level clerical position is part of a career ladder. Advancing to the next level would require these competencies. And that way, somebody that hires into the job understands that they've got the potential of moving up. There's a process that they can go. It's kind of like looking at junior, intermediate, senior, and to have that process defined. And actually, the district has a lot of that. It's just that it from job description to job description, that link hasn't been conveyed. The other issues affecting internal equity or jobs that change, and for whatever reasons they are, they don't get realigned, and that's an active process that we'll be recommending. And then the other thing with internal equity was the problem with the internal salary ranges. We found 11 to 12 completely different salary structures, going from those that had step went from 13, 19, 6. Those that were open had different spacing between minimum and maximum, and then a few flat salaries in between. And that's where we come back to the master salary schedule that we had spoken of in the very first of my presentation, is to be able to simplify that. It's real hard to have a consistent, equitable pay philosophy with all of those different philosophies, and a lot of them came from other districts, mostly years ago, to be able to respond to market pressures. But now we just want to get that under control. And then again, that last item, just at the risk of repeating myself over and over again, the needed process for people advancing through the salary range. Let's see, now on administrative processes, tools for optimal range placement. When this all goes live, the district will have an advanced job measurement system. And each time there is a proposed change in a job or a new job, data will be gathered about the job. That job will be applied. That data will be applied to an elaborate job measurement system that Human Resources is trained to administer, and that measuring system will suggest the range placement for the position. And that is what we refer to, and I'll refer to it over and over again, as a primary standard for assigning salary ranges. Decision support to preserve internal alignment. There is a decision support model that comes with our work that actually allows you to keep track of where people are in a salary range versus where they should be. And you can continually monitor that all the while they're sitting in that assigned salary range. And if that job and person goes to a different salary range, it starts all over as far as being able to monitor. The guidelines for skill advancement, promotions, and transfer is being reviewed. the techniques for maintaining the salary structure is, as I'm sure all of you know, that over time, salary ranges keep creeping higher and higher, and that to maintain that more aggressive salary alignment of the 60th percentile in your market, we have to keep reviewing that, and that's usually something that you do on at least a biannual basis. And it's not a labor intensive thing either. It's a quick review, matching it up to to your salary grid, and then change. When you make the changes to the salary grid, the whole grid moves. You just don't make changes to one job or the other. The whole grid moves. And then we've already talked about techniques for advancing staff over the time. But briefly stated, the lower somebody is in a salary range, we want to move them a little bit faster so that they get to that middle being the competitive target. And then once they get to the middle, then they can be status quo. But we want to kind of what we call get people off the dime and get them into the range. We think it's one of the key contributors to mitigating turnover. Recommendations. On the next slide, we've talked about this all through the findings, but competitive philosophy, it's simply stated, we're setting the ranges to be above average among the peer group of district and other employers, and that right now is being to approximate the 60th percentile in the market, to try to pay ahead of 59 to 60% of the other districts. The second one is again, the key recommendation is the master salary grid. This grid is designed to it's easy to upbeat, it stays competitive, it offers long-term salary growth, because basically you have nearly a 40% from minimum to maximum growth potential in a position that people can look at over time. Again, we've talked about it. The master salary schedule blends all employee groups, top to bottom. It does a nice job of fitting everybody into it, and we've got enough salary ranges that are set up into this master schedule to support career ladder. And so where we don't have a level 3 or a senior as opposed to an intermediate position, there's enough room in as we've built in and have simulated to be able to accommodate those kinds of things. And the whole idea of having the career ladders is, again, that junior, intermediate, senior, but it's also room, it's when people are more versatile, more skilled, there's a position for them. Now, onto the administrative processes, everything we do in salary administration is set up by a formula. It's the internal alignment equity, the job measurement process is a valid instrument. Equity, when we're trying to get people to be closer to where they should be in a range, we have a formula that can do that all within the fiscal limitations of the district. And in most cases, with most districts everywhere, that takes more than 1 year to accomplish. And also the fact that in program integrity depends on internal alignment. Internal alignment depends on measuring job content, skill, difficulty, conditions, and responsibility. It's not funding source. It's not who you report to, but it's all about job content. Then we get to the fun part, the process for converting budgets to salary growth. So as part of implementing the master schedule, you'll have a starting rate, which is the minimum of the range, and it'll go through the competitive target, and it'll go all the way through the maximum of the range. How do we move people through that? And this matrix that you see at the bottom of the page is an example of how people would advance through the range. And this and there is some logic on how you would adjust that matrix. If there is more money available, that influences the formula for how those increases. If there's less money available, that similarly influences the amount of the increases. But if I just describe this for a minute, if you see the numbers 84, 92, 100, 108, 116. 84 means that that's the minimum of the range, and it's at 84% of the competitive target right here. And then the maximum of the range is 16% over the competitive target. And so if people are close, if you can just follow me on this one, the closer you are to the minimum, the greater the increase, so that you can get off the minimum. If you'll recall me going back to some of the findings that people got hired at the minimum kind of stay there. This is designed to mitigate that issue. And a lot of those people that are down in that level will be recipients of fairly strong equity awards on implementation, or actually next fiscal year. So anyway, and then these two lines just mean a low and a high within that band. So like from 84 to 91, those people that would be there would be somewhere in there, a little bit lower in the next category, and so on and so forth. And people in the upper end would be tapering off. Arguably, their salaries are already 35 to 40% higher than those at the lower end. On the next page, I give you a visual of how that'll work. And when you have a salary range, it starts here, and it goes all the way to here, to the lower left, and it goes up to the upper right. The whole theory of a salary range is what we call a learning curve. And the salary growth during those learning and fully competent and proficient years increases at a faster rate until you get to that, right in here, until you get to that market level, and then it tapers off. There's still the increases, but so this is the retention, the motivation, and then this is at some point in time, there is some cost control that it doesn't go up in a straight line. Now, traditional plans that are built, and particularly for teachers, are generally built on this kind of line where people move slow, and it doesn't build on itself until people are really quite seasoned, quite long-term employees. And other than government, no other industry manages salaries on that basis. They typically try to get people in as competitive as they can, as fast as they can afford, to be able to keep them. Now, we overlaid the current condition, and this is an example of teachers where we had the progression of teachers over time. As you can see, the movement was pretty flat, and then it takes a big break, and those with extended service and extended education tend to be more competitive. And so the target group to work with is this group on that lower orange line. And so all those observations, we're coming right back to wanting to be as aggressive as we can during the highest risk years of losing people after we've invested a lot of money in their skills. On the next slide, I can show you a little bit about how it actually works. Now, this is the equity process. Now, what we have done to this point is that we've built these new salary ranges, and now the job is to put people in the ranges. And the first thing we do is a portion of the money that we're spending is going to be for everybody. I.e., supposing we give everybody 3 or 4% guarantee. Once we've done that, if we have people that are, like in this example, say of a bus driver, if we have people that are still below the minimum salary range, they automatically get moved to the minimum, regardless of tenure. So this would be your new start rate in round numbers. Another example of how people get in the range is they get the guarantee, and they might find that they're actually pretty close to being where they should be. Then we've got that group that, and they tend to be longer term employees or medium term employees that have kind of toughed it out over the years and stayed with the district. They like being there, and they like the culture. But this employee that makes the same as this second employee, they both make $21.45, but this individual's got 9. The model says at 3 years, that's about where they should be. This one's at 9 years, and the model's saying, holy cow, we got a problem. And they'll get the guarantee, but then there's going to be additional movement. And this is where they get the equity adjustment. We're spending some of that money to create a spread, either to get people to catch up with the Joneses, or to create a spread to get people that are being paid the same rate, but that employees see there should have been farther in the salary range. And the same thing, we look at teachers. Now, here's where we have some changes that are specific changes being recommended. Our recommendation is that the moving forward, the new starting rate for teachers is going to be roughly $50,500. That's a big departure from where you're at right now, and still getting existing people in the range. First year people are gonna go to that level plus some. People have been in the range. We might find people that once you apply that any kind of a guarantee, you might find people that are right on. But probably more commonly, you're going to find people with a bit more experience that are sitting down low with 8-year people that are sitting down in the range with 4-year people, and there's here again we have another equity issue. Nothing deliberate. It's the way salary administration has worked in the Phoenix market for decades, and we're just getting we are saying we're not going to respond to that market. We are going to define that market, and by defining it, we are going to get these people aligned where they should be, and that is probably one of the most one of the most significant features of having this master schedule. The next slide, we've got a few highlights here that we'd like to point out. Recognize we're moving pretty fast during this presentation, but so starting with minimum rates for hiring, we're sticking with the 15, and I should say that very loud and clear. This $15 that the governing board passed a little bit ago was really a smart move. Other districts are responding, and what you did as a governing board is you set a standard early on that we could start build on. But one of the fundamental differences where others will stop at 15 or 15 and a quarter, say for the most entry level positions, the most entry level position in the district will have earning potential up to 1970. We're talking crossing guard and or others, and so because they will be in one of these more exceptional salary ranges. Here's the salary. That there's a starting rate for a new grad, $50,535. Then what we have is a lot of things. We thought we would just offer just a few examples. We're doing realignments on paraprofessionals, the instructional assistants, the 4 levels. And those realignments are rather significant from the way I'm looking at it. Same with associate teachers. But when we get to teachers, we will have 4 salary ranges for those teachers with some gatekeepers to get to each level. And those gatekeepers are not just credits. Those will be other features, or I guess, lack of better words, I would use other accomplishments and credentials that would be very valuable for the classroom. And now, and putting all this, this is very, very. I love, this is a very broad-based description of the details. Nobody, for any reason, will get less than a 2.6% increase this next year. The budgetary impact of what we are proposing to move through is, those. Well over 8% in terms of budget impact. We have tested it. There is funding for it, and that funding is sustainable out into the future. But this is going to be a big move to getting people to where a portion of this, take this one for example, a portion of that budgetary impact move is going to be some guaranteed movement, but the way we're proposing spending the money on people within these occupation groups is to load up and see how see how aggressive and how far we can get improving the equity, you know, bringing those people back that there was no process for advancing through a salary range. Those kinds of things. And so this is just a rough idea of where we're at with those numbers. And again, just at the risk of repeating, these are things that have been tested and presented conceptually and simulated live, and we clearly believe this is a product that's the right thing to do. On the next slide, you're going, oh God, Vance, when are we going to be done with this? Well, I have an idea that we're going to be done with it right now. Again, those numbers that are there, we just put those budget numbers. Individual adjustments are going to vary. Now that is a concept that people will have to get used to. There's a lot of groups that, you know, that are used to over the years, everybody getting the same amount. Well, if we need to make some corrections, we can't make those corrections by giving people the same amount. Individual adjustments will vary, and there's going to be some well into the double digits of percentage, and some that'll be in the lower single digits. But it's all about internal equity. Now, total cost, we're estimating the whole shebang is $3 million roughly, and out of the L&O budget, $1.2 million, $1.25 million, and the classroom site fund $1.75 million. And the final numbers will vary ever so slightly, probably just real insignificantly, and we think that those numbers are realistic. And Mr. Manley can speak to more in terms of the details of you know, where the sources of funds come to support those numbers. And there you have it. This program is going to do, again, in summary, it's going to do two things. It's going to get you in the game with a very well thought out master salary schedule, and it's going to especially look at teachers and open up those salary ranges, you know, to be looking at the growth years, the learning years, and that. And coincidentally, there are a number of districts that are looking at what you're doing, and there will be others that will be following, and their teachers want this. The lane and column movement in most educational institutions does not help the teachers in their professional growth. You know, those that are in that 3 to 8 year period, and we want to change that value system, but we also don't want to take away from the people that have already been there and help them to keep moving. Anyway, that is in essence what the final product will look like.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson, for your presentation. I don't want to steal your thunder, but as a district, we know that 37% as a starting salary for new teachers is not going to get us where we want to be. I was excited to see how these numbers fell out, particularly when you look at our support staff. We need to do a better job celebrating their work. As a former special ed teacher, I could not have done my job without that support staff. And on the back end of that, if we don't have the salaries that we need to hire staff, we end up using vendors, and that puts us in a worse position. And again, I'm not stealing your thunder, Vance, but I know as a principal, I would train my new teachers, get them right where I want to be, and they'd take a look around, and then they'd leave the district. So this equity plan does a number for that. It recognizes that we grow our teachers, and in years 3 through 8, there's this disparity where you can take a look around the valley and kind of choose your own adventure. But this plan sort of puts a stop to that, and that it equitably compensates those teachers in the middle range so that they will stay in Phoenix #1 where they need to be. So this would give us a chance to get our support staff where they need to be in an equitable way so that everyone's measured on their job. And then that leads to growth. And then if it leads to the next job-based number. So there's perpetual opportunities to grow your profession. But I just have to, I'm very pleased at how this helps that 3 to 8 year teacher range where we lose good teachers that we've just helped become really good teachers. So, Mr. Jacobson, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there at the end, but any questions from the governing board about how this came to be, or any questions that we could answer?
I want to ask, what is the price on that tool that we're going to be using?
Oh, the tool down the road? That is a really good question.
I did not hear that question.
What is the price of the tool that we can use down the road?
0.
For the next 2 years?
And actually, thank you for bringing that up. That job measurement system and the decision support model come automatically with our work, as does the training to use it. And it is a licensed product, but that just means that it stays in the organization. That it doesn't get distributed to other employers, without our permission. Other than that, the system and the updates to the system to make sure that it retains its measuring capability are yours from here on out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in 25, 26, there would be an option to take a closer look, and that might encompass a bit of an additional cost in 3 years. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Well, I believe that this tool will work in perpetuity, forever, but there's a chance to, in a few years, to realign with consultant help.
Yeah,
Was
he's
that the overall?
bringing up the future, and in the future, as we need more support, then there would be an additional cost, as it would be outside of the contract that we currently have with you.
Yeah, and those are usually maintenance contracts that are a portion, a small portion of what the initial project was, and that's usually the choice of the district. Most will do that because then then we can be a resource for like organizational change, job design change, and also a very efficient resource because we have an immense database of competitive salary information that's right at our fingertips.
Mr. Jacobson, when you did the internal equity audit, how many years were you working with?
When you did the internal equity audit, how many years were you working with?
How many? Was I working with?
Years, number of years.
Let's see. That's a hard one to answer, but in other words, like the number of years of employees that each employee had.
No, more so the number of years.
Usually we would block employees like less than 2.
No, it's not about employees, it's the number of years.
That you did your research based off of. Like, did you look at employees from 2000 all the way from 2023?
That you did your research based on. For example, did you look at employees from 2000 into 2023, or what was the years that you utilized for the study?
for this study, all of the data that we looked at externally is data that's effective, 2022, 23 fiscal years, and also those other organizations that are, where we need to do some cross-referencing to other industries. Most of that data is a January to December year.
Yeah, no, the
And so-
question, Mr. Jacobson, the question is around, for example, if we have an employee that was with us from 2020, is that something that we considered as part of this study?
So absolutely. Okay, now I get it. Yeah. So like, for example, if like those illustrations, that we had a few pages ago. And so if we have that individual's current salary, we know that the minimum of the new range is where they would be if they came in, if they came in brand new. But if they've got somebody that came in 2000, they've got 3 years, then the model will say, okay, the perfect world is that 3 years they should be here. If the employee is there right now, then it's okay. But if it's not, that's where the model will suggest an equity adjustment for them if placed right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're refining the question. Give me a second.
So what I'm trying to figure out is when we talk about the bullet point of looking at gender, race, and found no patterns, what was the year span that you studied to understand that those patterns are non-existent?
So as we look at the patterns for gender, race, what were those patterns? What were the years that you utilized to come to the conclusion that those patterns do not exist?
I couldn't answer that tonight without diving into the model and breaking down. That's actually a pretty detailed analysis that I would do. I've done that, but it's something that I don't have a one pat answer for that. But one of the things we do when I break each division for equity, I say, okay, what is the average length of time in the job for that division? And then I go, where are they in their range? And the average person that's in that subgroup, let's say that they are at 90% of them go the range. And then I look at the average, length of time in their job, and let's say that average is 95% of the middle of the range. And so there's a 5% differential with that, that particular subgroup. And but there was a differential with every ethnicity, and so you look at it and you make a call and it says, well, everybody's in the same boat regardless of ethnicity, and maybe in places where there might have been some gender considerations, realigning those jobs and doing a subsequent equity look would solve that problem. But again, we, the patterns were just all over the board. There just really wasn't anything. What we look for is stuff that's systemic, and there wasn't anything systemic. It was just sort of having some weak processes administratively.
Can I jump in and just provide a little bit of clarity? So for the equity piece, it's my understanding that we looked at the last 12 months as the baseline for how you built the equity piece around. So it was this past year's salary scheme for the whole district compared to the 12 comparison points. So for the purposes of the equity study, it was a baseline was this last year and how that compared with the market for this past year. I don't know if that helps answer.
You have more? Okay. Just, and I don't know whether this is for Mr. Jacobson or district, but I'm just wondering how, I know the tool is how we figure it out, but then like, what does this rollout look like for our staff? And then what support will we have? I'm sure the staff's going to have a lot of questions about all of this. So how does that support look?
Sure. So assuming that the schedule gets adopted, there's a lot of work to do between now and July 1st. So the first part is the communication. So making sure that our principals and our directors know what this means. From a kind of a nuts and bolts perspective, every single employee will need to get a new contract addendum or a new work agreement. And that would involve communicating that to whatever the raise is for each individual employee, and then working with both HR and payroll to make sure that our system that pays people through visions and through TCP understands that everyone's going to have a new contract amount. So once that gets approved and the leadership understands what this mechanism means, and the employees have an understanding of what their compensation will be for next year, at the same time, we're rolling over our general ledger for next year and then re-inputting everybody's salary expectations so that on our 26 pay periods, the system knows how to pay the people the new amounts. So really it starts with communication and then making sure that the back end business pieces are all squared away. And we've already reached out to a few folks to make sure that our general ledger rollover works out pretty well. But then this payroll adjustment would be a little bit more complex, but we've got a handle on how to go about making sure that it works.
And part of our journey is to make sure that we're communicating this clearly, because there's going to be different amounts that are going to impact different individuals. And earlier in my career, I had the opportunity to go through this as an employee. And I recall I was one of the people that was not at the receiving end of this way of bringing things into an equitable place, reducing those inequities. And I really had to absorb that throughout my journey. I didn't have that compression, or I didn't have the different challenges that other people had. But it takes a little bit of time to absorb that emotionally, and for you to get to that level of I'm getting a different amount than others, and others are getting a much larger amount. But once we get to that point and we see the inequity piece that had taken place for some of the employees, then we're able to arrive to an outcome such as myself, where I did not get an increase, but I was very pleased that others did, because they had not been treated equitably in the past. We need to make sure that we do a really good job communicating that and helping others go through that journey, just like once upon a time I went through it when I was not at the receiving end. That's where it gets complicated. That's where it gets hard at the emotional level. But we're prepared to work through that and make sure that our employees understand that those that are receiving a little bit more is because things have not always been just or equitable for them.
Do we have the operational capacity to make this happen by then, by July?
I believe that we do. And again, we will know once we're able to deliver this. But I believe that through some of the efforts, and I want to give credit where credit's due, Dr. Diaz has been spending a lot of time, not just on the capacity study part of it, but also how it will be implemented, because it's just as equally as important. So I know that our employees will be receiving individual letters that is going to explain in a summary way what we've done here, what we're trying to aim, and then their own amount. And of course, the ability to ask those questions. And so I believe that we are prepared for that. And once, of course, it takes place, we will see what areas we may need to refine, but we're excited about this. And I think many of our employees will be, and it's been long overdue. And finally, it's here for us.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'm thinking, how does this compensation analysis review impact what I imagine to be will be proceeding revisions to the agreements we approved through meet and confer?
Meet and confer was a part of some of this journey, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Manley because he has more of those details.
For sure. So I had the ability to participate in the last several meet and confer processes, and this would be in alignment with that. So part of the pieces that they were excited about accepting were taking a look at using the classroom site fund money, which is part. Oh, my bad. I thought he was talking to me. So the classroom site fund piece, which represents the teaching increase part, along with the other pieces of meet and confer. But the bread and butter of that was accepted with the meet and confer process with the new master salary schedule, and then the blending of the classroom site funds, in addition to the M&O. Thankfully, we have a carryover, so we're in a good place to make this work.
Thank you.
And when will the findings be published?
Mr. Jacobson, can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear.
That's fantastic. Our question on the floor is, when are we going to have access to those final results so that we're able to share those with our board and then our community?
The final details for every person, or
The final draft of our compensation report, when do we anticipate being able to have that?
tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Thank you. And so our goal is to share it with our board so that you have an opportunity before May 9th, when we will bring it back for action to review it. And then once you have an opportunity to review and give feedback, then we'll be able to share that with Mr. Jacobson. And eventually we are very eager to share it with our community, our staff, our employees.
Thank you all. I wasn't too sure if Mr. Jacobson had any last words, but are we ready to move on to our master's salary schedule item? All right, let's discuss item G2, our master salary schedule for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you so much, Governing Board. So I have in front of you, just as an information item, G2, which is the recommendation from the compensation analysis that was performed by JV Reward System. And if you take a look at the spreadsheet that they have here, this goes over precisely what Mr. Jacobson had just described. So it's one master salary schedule that goes from the grades 103 all the way up through 140. And so this represents every employee in the district. What you have in front of you also helps delineate how, like, for example, our 10.5 month versus 11-month versus 12-month employees. So if you don't work the whole year, you work 10 out of the 12 months. So this extrapolates that master salary schedule over those employee term ranges. But this shows how that process turned into a schedule that would represent all the employees in the district.
Thank you for that, and also for answering my question earlier about the min, mid, and max. Were there any questions regarding the salary schedule from the board?
My only comment is just to make sure that we're communicating clearly to the staff how and why it looks like this, because it doesn't look like a salary schedule that I've used as a teacher. So I want to make sure everyone understands what is happening when they sign in July and what will continue to happen for the next 5 years that they work for us, or 10 years or 25 years. Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Communication is going to be key for this to be successful.
thank you.
Hearing no further comments on that item, let's welcome Mr. Curtis up here to take care of item G3, our after-school programming and peer program. Welcome and thanks for being here and being patient with us.
Thank you. Is there a way to move through the slides, or is someone going to do that for me? Oh, perfect. Madam President, members of the board, cabinet, members of the community, thank you for having me. Got to get adjusted to the height of this here. Always have to duck. It is my privilege to be able to be here tonight to talk about our after-school program called Peer Club. For those that do not know the acronym, what PEER stands for, it stands for Phoenix Elementary Enrichment Resources. The program has been a pillar of our district for approximately 35 years and has always been a catalyst for enrollment assisting with enrollment to our district with our children. PEER provides free after-school childcare services to working families of students that are currently enrolled at a school in our district in grades K through 8 from dismissal until 6 p.m. We also include summer and intersession opportunities for those enrolled families. The program is designed to be an extension of the school day by providing a safe, fun, and challenging learning environment through various planned activities and thematic teaching units. Not many people know this about me, but my brothers and I were some of the very first kids ever enrolled in the PEER program. I attended Hurd School myself and was part of the first graduating class from the Phoenix Prep Academy. I went to Central High School, then to ASU, and then started working in PEER in 1999, and I have been here since. Due to my history with the program, PEER is very dear to my heart, as I have seen the evolution of this program from its inception. This program started as a one-school pilot program at Hurd School and then expanded to a 4-quadrant program district-wide. Due to the popularity of the program and the need for after-school programming, PEER was expanded and offered at every school in our district. Just like many of our families, my mother worked and she relied heavily on the PEER program for support until she was able to pick us up from work. During my years in PEER, some of the best role models and mentors I encountered as a child were PEER staff members, and some of them still work in our district today. What makes PEER special is that it's been a reliable resource for our families for a very long time, and it is truly embedded in the fabric of our district. PEER offers some amazing built-in programs to expand the children's educational opportunities after school that include tutoring clubs, homework clubs, art, music, dance, physical education, and our sports expansion of the 7th and 8th grade competitive leagues, as well as our 5-6 club level introductory leagues. During intersessions and summer months, we were able to take our planning and intentional programming to the next level. We hire certified teachers and coordinators to develop a thematic teaching unit that is designed to allow kids the opportunity to explore and be fully engaged in learning from history, culture, math, science, reading, performing arts, you name it. Our goal is to allow teachers an opportunity to be free and explore creative ways to be outside the box thinkers and instructors while maximizing student learning in ways that are different than traditional learning styles. The longer intersession days and summers allow us time to really roll up our sleeves and become entrenched with great learning opportunities for our students. Some examples of some of the great cultural camps that we've provided over the years are the Taipei Chinese Cultural Camp. We've had the Kawambe African Drumming, Dance, Singing, and Storytelling Camp. Some examples of great thematic units that we've had over the years are the Under the Sea experience, where we study marine biology and ocean life. Zoomania, the prehistoric world of dinosaurs. We also had a science and sustainability camp where kids made solar ovens. We had a summer recycling program. We looked at alternative fuels. We had teachers working with students to create water-powered bottle rockets and race cars. We really had some fun times in our summers and intersessions. Within these camps and thematic units, we find field trip experiences that allow kids opportunities to be hands-on and to just have some fun. As a kid in Pierre myself, some of the most memorable experiences I had as a kid were from these field trips with friends. It showed me that this world was huge and there's a lot more to life than just what I saw inside my neighborhood. Being in a position that allows me the ability to offer kids these same types of experiences and memories is invaluable. Pierre has also established a collaborative bridge with our school day classrooms with some of the relationships that we have built over the years. One of those great partners is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Our teachers have been given the opportunity to participate in STEM-based program called the Science of Baseball. We've had classrooms participate in the Read Your Way to the Ballpark program. We also have opportunities throughout the summer months to go to the Diamondbacks games, 2 or 3 games, depending on the home schedule, and we're offered commissioner tickets that are free of charge to all of our kids. Coach Mo with the Arizona Cardinals, he manages the youth football program, and he's connected us with the Fuel Up to Play 60 program. This program provides free equipment to all of our athletic programs that include footballs, flags, and youth curriculum development books for all of our coaches. So these are just some of the great things that we are doing in Pierre and have done in Pierre. In regard to quality supports for families, as I discussed on the previous slide, we have a framework with a lot of built-in systems and components that make Pierre a successful program, fulfilling the need of our families. A big part of our success also comes by the type of people that we seek to employ to work with our children. We are always looking to employ ambitious, upbeat, caring, and compassionate people that love children and love to develop youth. Our staff have a lot of skills, talents, and interests that kids also find engaging. And being in an environment where these various interests can be shared helps develop the whole child. So our district has a set of criteria in terms of what we use to employ staff. We are also regulated by the Department of Health Services, Office of Child Care Licensing. So they have a secondary, I guess, source that we have to comply with in order for us to maintain compliance. So I provided a list of these specific items in terms of what it takes to be in or to work in a licensed child care facility, which is quite stringent. It does provide some challenges in the sense that we cannot have just anybody come volunteer in our program. We cannot just employ anybody in our program. There really is a higher regard in terms of what it is that we are looking for in our staff. I would also like to point out that all of our staff are required yearly to take at least a minimum of 18 training hours in child care development. Not in addition to that, we also ask all of our staff members to provide lesson plans and also have the ability to be able to teach those lesson plans to the children. When we talk about engaged students, as we know, when kids have something to look forward to, they will wake up early and get there and bug us parents to make sure that they get there on time. So our kids and families love Pierre, they love our athletic programs, and they love our staff. Offering this program gives our kids something to look forward to every day. Our ability to offer a variety of options for our students within the Pierre program helps it appeal to more than just one type of child, as our goal is to meet the needs of every child. And some of the most memorable times that I've had in Pierre is when I'm there during a pickup and a kid, a parent is there to pick their child up and the kid starts having a tantrum because they didn't get to finish their project or they didn't have enough time, or why'd you come pick me up early, or whatever it may be. So that's one indication to me when I see that we've done our job. In terms of the 2023 student enrollment figures, I broke this table down into two components here. So the first 8 rows indicate the names of schools, followed by the site capacity, along with the number of children enrolled, along with the percent occupied and the wait list. So if we look at Herrera, for example, we have 100, our allotted site capacity is 120 students. We currently have 94 students enrolled, which is 78% of our allotted site capacity with no students on the wait list. We had a very small number of students on the wait list. If you look at Hurd, Kenilworth, and Emerson, those were the 3 identified schools with a small wait list. Emerson is unique in the sense that they offer G Road as a program Monday through Thursday, where then Peer comes in and provides supports on Friday. Our target goal, if you look at it district-wide, for those particular 8 sites, our goal is to service 1,260 kids. We're currently at 638, which is about 50% of what we would like to be, with a small wait list of 75 students. I would like to point out that a school like Garfield, for example, that has an allotted site capacity of 120 students, that only has 37 students currently enrolled, which is 30% of the occupied capacity, they have no students on the wait list. So although we are far from where we used to be and what we want to be, we are still able to provide services for all of those families, and there is no wait list. Rows 9 through 12 identify the 5 sites that we currently are not able to offer peer at this time. We are utilizing the YMCA as a contracted vendor to help us provide supports for families in needs. We also have the Boys and Girls Club that is offered off campus to a small number of participants at each school through ESSER funds to be able to provide additional supports for families that would like to utilize that service instead. I would like to say that Peer Club, again, is a licensed program, and we're required to maintain a 20-to-1 student to staff ratio. So in terms of just being able to add kids in at will, we do not have that flexibility. In order for us to add an additional 20 students, we have to add 1 more staff member. So for every 20 students, we have to have 1 staff member, which kind of restricts us in terms of being able to offer the 11 kids at Emerson that would like the services to be able to get in. Peer registration for the upcoming school year began on April 10th for the upcoming school year, and it ends on April 27th. So just in a few days here, I should have some more information in regard to what we look like as far as moving forward for the next school year. Highly satisfied families and communities. Our families are extremely satisfied with the peer program. As we've heard during previous board meetings, when discussions about the peer program opportunities are on the table, it's very clear that our families support our program and have expressed their desire to have peer as a program of choice on their campus. We are truly committed to our families. Our families depend on peer to be a reliable resource that can be utilized as a safe place for their children. Participants love the mentorship and relationships they're able to build in peer with staff and friends. Families love opportunities provided for their children in peer to be able to explore, learn, and try new things. Again, peer is made available to enroll families during the school year and intersession breaks and summers. And that's important because our families just do not need services during the school year. They also need those additional supports during our summers and intersessions. So the fact that we are able to pretty much offer peer year round, with the exception of the 2 weeks during our winter holiday break, we are open pretty much year round. My vision for peer in its simplest form is we want to provide supports for our families by reaching as many children as we possibly can. We want our children engaged, learning, being challenged, and in an environment that allows them to explore and have fun. Our kids come from different walks of life, and many of them have a lot on their plate and are forced to grow up in many ways too early. Being able to provide a safe place for 3 to 3.5 hours in a window during a week where kids can just be kids and not worry about anything else than just being a kid is important. Our continued efforts in order to make this happen is we need to maintain our outreach efforts with our partners and work on building new relationships that will benefit the district and our families. We need to continue to strategize on more ways to be competitive, as we just heard the presentation. We need to promote within our own district and community, as word of mouth has always been our biggest driving force in staffing efforts. We have a lot of staff that have been peer students like myself that come back to work in peer as peer aides, work their way up the ladder, instructional assistants, peer leads. They teach in our summer programs. They become teachers in our districts, even work in leadership capacity. Joseph Fuentes is a great example of a homegrown kid himself that went to Lowell and is now a principal. Ms. Botts also just happens to be here today, also has roots within peer as a teacher, and she is also working in the capacity of a principal. So we've got a lot of roots here in the district with a lot of great leaders, and that's something to be very proud of. So in closing, I'll just say that share a little bit of history. Several years ago, the peer program was nominated as a top 3 finalist for the AZ Case Award, which is the Arizona Center for After School Excellence. This was an amazing recognition for our program and validates the hard work that is spent building a high quality program. We will continue our efforts to build our program and sustain the level of quality that our district, families, and children deserve. Thank you. Any questions?
No question, just a comment. I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate your dedication to our community. And I just really appreciate that you're still with us.
Thank you.
I also just have a comment, no questions. I am a magnet mom, used peer since my kids were in kindergarten, first grade, both of them. And Coach Curtis was also my son's football coach, basketball coach. He wears a lot of hats. So I just want to tell you how great job you guys have done. And you're right. I remember picking up my son and he was like, Mom, why did you come so early? I didn't finish, whatever the case it was, because he's in 9th grade now, but he was there his whole elementary years. And I'm like, because we have to go home. I'm coming from work. So I really thank you and appreciate all the work that you have been doing and that you're going to continue to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love hearing the historical pieces of our staff and just everything that you do share. It really gives that humanizing approach because we are a family, and I don't think we know or we celebrate as much as we can the traditional legacy families that we have that just come and stay here and show up every day, because that's just what our grandparents did. So I recently learned that all of my aunts and uncles, attended here, and my daughter was a Taipei camp girl, and I still have her Chinese yo-yo. And
yes, great times.
So I'm just grateful for the information that you are still with us, and that you continue to share what you need from us so that we can make sure you're supported. So
thank you.
Thank you. Right. No further questions. Thanks for being
Thank you very
here.
much.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item G4, our Phoenix Elementary School District Improvement Bonds information. I believe this is Mr. Manley's cue.
Turning it over to Mr. Manley again.
Thank you, Governing Board. I appreciate you as you deal with me with technology. So in front of you, you have a spreadsheet that just represents some of the projects that are being considered with the first issuance of that bond. I've shared some of these projects. Again, these are in the draft stages, so nothing has, well, other than planning, has happened at this point. Working with some architects and looking at what our capacity would be for when these bond funds hit in mid-June. So again, these are in draft form, but this would represent the first $48 million of our $97 million bond issuance that is done with fidelity to the election pamphlet that allowed us to have these bonds issued. So I will share that we had a pretty successful due diligence call, and we met with Standards & Poor to get that bond rating. So we still haven't issued them yet. That will be coming here shortly, but we are in anticipation of this and we'll be ready as soon as those funds hit. And of course, any input on these projects is welcome. And this again is a draft, and it represents a little less than the first half of the total amount that will be issued.
Can you describe what the cafeteria remodels look like?
I can, to some extent, and I know we have our new director of child nutrition here, Miranda Martin is here. Hello. So just again, so we have the architects in place. We were taking a look at what the oldest.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble.
I think that would be outside the scope of what we're noticed for. The actual projects are not listed on the bonds, on the agenda item.
However, whenever we start to look at architects and things of that nature, we'd be happy to share with
Architects are
board.
fine. Sure.
Yep, we'd be happy to share all the information we have at our earliest board update.
And we'll follow up on a board update to share the information with you so that we keep it within the scope of this meeting.
Yes, great question, because it is nice to kind of get a visual. So we will appreciate that. Any other questions or comments regarding our bonds?
I do have a question. For the HVAC upgrades, was there a reason we couldn't use ESSER funds for those?
It's my understanding that we did use ESSER funds for some HVAC pieces. That came.
We will offer
Oh,
that
never mind.
explanation as part of our follow-up with our board. So
Sure will.
go ahead and ask all of your questions, whether it be right now or if you email me, and then we'll give a little bit more detail as your curiosity is piqued.
Yes, I would like to know where the fencing is going.
Madam Chair, one option you might have, because you have board requests coming on later or future agenda items, is you could ask that either it be put on a future agenda item, or if you have a board request for information on those items, we could log that and the staff could follow up.
I will share that independent of this agenda item, any project that's coming through the Business Services Office, we are a transparent book. So anything that's on this list or on another list that we're planning on doing as a district that would require governing board approval, we will be happy to share all information with all the projects, including where the fencing has been identified as a need.
Thank you.
Womp womp. It says a discussion item. Okay. Well, I guess that means we move on to our next item. Okay. That would be G5, our district sustainability and climate action plan.
And I'm turning that over again to Mr. Manley, who will have an opportunity to present our guest today.
Absolutely. So I bring to you guys, this is just an information item again, but we have our friends from Schneider. Just a little bit of background, in or around 2021, it was recognized that this district has the opportunity to look at our full scope of how we use our natural resources. And there were some fairly obvious inefficiencies that were present. So from that, Schneider, one of our partners, took some walks around our physical sites and basically just did an assessment. And this presentation will talk about what that assessment found, but kind of more importantly, or what the next steps would be. So following an assessment like this comes something called an investment grade assessment, where you actually go in and take a very deep dive and look at the full scope of what we're doing inefficiently and try to do things like reduce our carbon footprint and make more efficient electric and plumbing and irrigation decisions, and really take a look at the whole scope of the district operations and come up with a plan to do better things with less resources. So kind of with that, I will hand it over to Brandon, who's going to go through the first stages of what this assessment had looked like.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Manley. Superintendent Davila Hagigat, Madam President, members of the council, I'm sorry, the board and the cabinet. We appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. This is something I'm personally really passionate about and excited to share with you tonight. Kind of what Mr. Manley shared already, where we've been and where we're going with this initiative. And here is, this can work. It is.
So not to steal your thunder, but I did want to let you all know that I added a slide about the guardrails. So this one in particular is taking a look at budget equity. It really encompasses more than just the budget. I think having attractive, efficient schools also would help drive enrollment, but just for the purposes of kind of the money that we save and the cool things that we might be able to do with this. This does look at how the superintendent will not allow the district to operate without a site budget process where resources are allocated equitably. So that is a component of this, is to make sure that all of our kids are in safe, clean, healthy environments that aren't wasting our natural resources. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Slowly but surely it's coming. So real quick, high level goals. These are the two things we want to share today. As I mentioned, kind of where we've been, that high level assessment we did for the district, some of the results and outcomes of that. I'll share some details and pictures there. And then goal number 2, where we're going with this, that deep dive investment grade audit that we're working on with the district to have some tangible results and outcomes as a result of this. So, and as I'm going through this, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm going to try and fly through this and get you out of here sooner than I expected. So
I'm sorry, can you just introduce yourself and your company?
I would love to. Yes, Brandon Woodward, Schneider Electric. I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of you at district events in the past, but pleasure to meet the rest of you. So as we look at this, we're looking at areas to save energy, save money, save water. The first place we typically start is at your utilities, and the district is spending just about $2 million a year on your utilities. The vast majority of that is your electric bill, no surprise, a small sliver of gas, and then a pretty large portion of water. And that I'll dive into that a little bit deeper on a future slide, but overall about $2 million on utilities. And so the question we ask is, what can we accomplish if we're able to drastically lower those utility costs and reinvest that savings into where it really matters, modernizing your facilities, improving the learning environment? So what this looks like, oversimplification, but your existing utility bill and operations costs, if we're able to drastically lower those, so before and after the project, that delta, the difference there, that's our sweet spot, the district savings. So instead of overspending to SRP and to Phoenix Water utility companies and overspending on M&O, what is currently wasted utility spend, redirecting that back into the classroom is our bread and butter. That's what we're focusing on. And working with district leadership as we're looking at this project, these are priorities we identified. As I mentioned, save energy, save water, save money. That's kind of the cornerstone of this, but also looking at operational efficiency. How can we give your M&O team the resources, tools, systems they need to be as effective and as efficient as possible? A huge one is everything that we're doing, we're doing it with purpose. How do we, if we're changing lights, how are we making sure that we're modernizing the learning environment and everything is tying back into improving the classroom, the learning environment for these students? And then the last one on here, this is a growing priority of the district, is not just the short-term solutions, but also a long-term sustainability and climate action plan. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. As far as some of the recommendations that will probably be included with a project like this, here's a high-level look at some of those, and I'm going to dive into just a few of these in a little more detail, starting with LED lighting. And this is kind of a no-brainer when you're looking at energy efficiency. This is the low-hanging fruit, best bang for your buck as far as savings, but also a huge impact on the look and the feel on a campus. So you've got old schools, you've got old inefficient lighting. That's no surprise. There's a sampling there of some of the lights you've got district-wide. We're looking at replacing everything interior and exterior with high efficiency LED. And that makes a significant impact on not only the classroom, but when you're looking at a school from the exterior, Safety and security in the parking lots is a big factor that we're considering with this. And also even just curb appeal. You're looking at a school with old lights that don't match versus a school with brand new LED lighting. It gives a whole new facelift to these schools. Water conservation. This is a growing concern. We live in the desert. There's more people moving here. We've got less water to go around. So this is something we're going to be probably hitting pretty hard on. And I mentioned earlier, you've got a pretty significant portion of your utility cost that's going towards water, about twice as high percentage-wise as what I see in other districts. There's a lot to that I can't unpack in the next 5 minutes, but at a really high level, one of the big factors here is just how you're watering your fields. So you've got canal water that you're flood irrigating some areas. You've got sprinkler doing some others. The real pain is if you see the picture up there at Lowell and Kenilworth, you are flood irrigating with expensive city water. It's very costly. So you're spending more at those two sites on water than you are at all of your other ones combined. Yeah. So identifying a solution for that is a big factor. And then also combining that with sustainable landscaping, xeriscape, drought resisting plants, and then in strategic locations, artificial turf. This is one that you don't want to do any huge areas typically, but smaller areas. You look at Mesquite High. We just did a project there on the bottom. Before and after the impact that has. It looks like a new school when you drive by this. So balancing the xeriscaping with artificial turf and a few other things to save water, save M&O, and also improve that curb appeal. And the last scope slide, this is kind of a catch-all of a lot of things we looked at. I'll start with that picture on the left there. If you've been to Lowell, you might recognize this structure. This is in the courtyard. It's from what we've seen and heard, it's an underutilized or unused space. And so in talking with Dr. Gonzalez, we've had many conversations about how do we reimagine what the learning environment could be. And so looking at a sustainable outdoor learning environment, this is something we've had tremendous success with throughout California, and bringing in solar panels, fans, outdoor modular equipment that can be set up and torn down very easily to give a new, fresh perspective on learning and getting students outside to do the traditional learning. And then on the right there, earlier it was mentioned you purchased your first 2 electric buses. It's super exciting. Looking at what does it look like down the road for electrical infrastructure, electric vehicle infrastructure, buses and fleet. And then things like building envelope, the PR and media piece of this. Our marketing team drafted up some sample sustainability logos as the district starts to be more proactive on sustainability, highlighting that to the community, coming up with fun logos, and just pushing some of that. You see the city of Phoenix does this. A lot of cities, a lot of school districts have specific logos for sustainability. And then as a result of, or as was clear with the peer presentation before and everything I've seen from the district, community and student engagement is key. You guys, you do it right. You talk and act more on that than any district I've seen in Arizona. So tying everything we're doing back into that where we can is a big factor. And then the last piece on here is this, the district sustainability and climate action plan. This is still to be determined. And what this looks like is Schneider Electric helping the district to come up with your own sustainability plan through what we call sustainability leadership. So this is a high level look at what that process, that roadmap to sustainability looks like, but it's getting input from staff, students, leadership, the board, potentially even the students, if they can play a role in this, tying that all together into something that's tangible and forward thinking for your sustainability roadmap. As far as the potential on the savings side, this is not a small number, potentially about $400,000 in that ballpark, depending on how much you do in utility and M&O savings every single year. So that is a significant chunk of your current costs that can be reinvested back into the learning environment. Pairing that with up to $300,000 a year in SRP rebates. There are more grants out there for this type of work than I've ever seen. So utilizing our dedicated grants and rebates team to maximize grants for the district. We're looking at over the life of a project, potentially $18 to $20 million in life cycle savings for this. So that's $18 million that would be wasted on overpaying your utility bills and overspending on M&O that's now redirected towards addressing some of your top needs.
Is the savings after the cost of implementing all of these things?
So these are just very high level numbers. For the sake of this, what I've got is just $18 million in total savings. And so what we do is we come back with, here's a whole list of needs, what they cost on one side, what they save on the other, and kind of give you the name your price tool to figure out, hey, where does this fall and what does this payback look like? Because you're on the right track where we're finding $20 million worth of savings. It's going to take care of X million dollars worth of upgrades, modernizations in the classroom.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And the last slide here, as far as where we're going, as I mentioned, we did a very high level assessment of just a few of your facilities. Our next step, what we're working on with the district is, as Mr. Manley mentioned, it's called an investment grade audit, an IGA. And what that is a deep dive into everything we just mentioned. So getting on site for multiple days, having deep conversations with staff on priorities and focus areas for this project, and coming back with two outcomes. One is a turnkey project, a sustainability project that outlines a lot of the scope that we talked about already, to actually put shovels in the ground and do that work. And then second is that sustainability or climate action plan we mentioned as a direct deliverable as a result of this. So over the next several months, we'll be working with Mr. Manley and his team to identify this. I'm sure we'll be updating you throughout that process and hopefully even getting input for that sustainability plan as we continue to develop that. So that is all I've got. I'd love to entertain any questions you've got.
For clarification, this study was all 19 of our properties? This included all 19 or just what we're operating?
The IGA will involve everything that we have. For this initial walkthrough, I believe it was 6 sites or a number of sites. It was all prior to my employment here, but kind of the bread and butter of this is that this IGA will take that deep dive and give us a list of possibility things that we could do, and then it's sort of a choose your own adventure. We can pick the ones that we think are the biggest impact for the district. We could emphasize some sites over other sites depending on what the needs are. I know that I personally asked to see what the cost per kilowatt hour is per child per site, just to see if we can gauge how the enrollment at our sites has affected what we're paying for these resources that we're investing in the schools. So before we make any decisions about how we're going to move forward, we'll have the opportunity to take a look at that assessment and sort of pick what we decide is in the best interest of what we're going to do. And anything that and all the procurement rules would follow with that. You know, we're lucky enough to have this bond issuance where part of that, in my opinion, needs to be part of a climate sustainability action plan. When you look at kind of the waste that we're doing, when you look at how much we could save, that tells me that, gosh, I wish we did this 10 years ago. But moving forward, this will give us a really good idea of what sites are the least efficient, what sites are the most efficient, and then what we can do as a district to triage something district-wide or kind of choose your own adventure and pick your path. So there'll be a lot more input that's going to be needed going down the road. But the first thing to do is to get this audit done so we kind of know where we stand and where we're being the least efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manley, for bringing this forward. I know I have and other members have long advocated for something like this. So our campus or district can be more sustainable. For me as a recommendation is, and as I ask questions, comments, is aligning this with the city's climate action plan as well, since there's already a strong foundation to have our district be a part of that plan, because it already addresses the heat island impact, shading, building cool corridors, which is I know that is something that should be present on our campus, which is why we're doing the tree planting on Friday. So just anyway, going in with the questions, for energy efficiency, does it address insulation too? Did the audit look at insulation and our quality of insulation?
So yes, that's something we'll be looking at is in the building envelope category, insulation, windows, weatherproofing, et cetera.
Thank you. Yeah, because I would want to look at that. For landscaping, or for solar, what percentage of our campuses use solar, and are they solar ready? Do we have solar ready schools?
Ooh, percentage. That's a trick question. I think
Or you can give a number.
I think you've got solar on, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. My recollection is 2 or 3 sites that have solar currently. Does that sound about right?
Your guess, I wouldn't say guess. I think it's 3 sites, but they're older systems, and I know that they're not tied into the newest, most efficient use. And I think they're APS buyback pieces where there's a lot of things we can look at and recommend, but I don't know what they are because we haven't done that assessment yet, but that would be part of it.
Yeah, I would want to know the number of campuses or percentage and what our goal would be to increase our solar energy use. My goal for our district would not to just be net zero, but net positive in terms of contributing back energy to our campus, being able to be in a position to do that, but also like in terms of being the backbone of our community, being a place where our community can go and seek shelter, shading, food resources too, such as stuff like that too.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. So the second part of that question, we will be looking at solar at likely all of your sites. They are all, in theory, solar ready. And so we're looking at that, bringing the numbers forward on what the cost and savings that looks long-term, and also tying that into the sustainability and climate action plan, making sure that we're working towards whatever that goal is, net zero or any number of other goals that are there, aligning that to the path you guys have set out or will set out.
Yeah, because with the cool corridors, it does tie into our projects. I don't know if we can talk about that, but but the city is doubling tree canopy, increasing that to 25%. So in an audit, I would want to know what our goal would be to increase our shading for our students. You go out to our campuses. I was a teacher. I didn't even want to sit out there and watch our students play because it would get so hot.
Yeah, and to your original comment about aligning this with the city of Phoenix, that conversation has already started. We had the pleasure of meeting with the heat office just a week or 2 ago. And when I mentioned that this is something that's potentially working currently with this district, they loved the idea of seeing where there's some overlap and aligning what they're working on and what we hope to work on here. So there should be plenty of future conversations around that in the future.
I agree. I've dealt with them before. Some of the priority areas which they've neglected are our schools in South Phoenix. So as a priority area would be our schools that are in communities with low tree canopy scores. And I think that could tie into what the bond is going to fund to for those projects: beautification, shade structures, and then climate sustainability, and then also materials that we use when we're building up our infrastructure.
Pardon me. Yeah, they're all very closely related. So we need to make sure we're doing this with fidelity, with like one vision and one voice, with sustainability that supports our academic endeavors. So yeah, your input is definitely going to be needed down the road when it comes to it was difficult deciding if the HVAC and the shading and the xeriscaping, I mean, they blend together. Like what part is climate, what part is beautification? They should all be done with one vision and one end goal in mind.
Yeah, because we just went to you're at the golf tournament. You saw how beautiful the desert landscape was, and that's something we can have on all our campuses.
Yeah. Yep, and when we look at that from a holistic perspective, as Mr. Manley's mentioned, something the district hasn't done previously, which I'm excited to help put some of that together.
But I have a lot of thoughts. But again, for me, I guess I know it goes back to our community center and our community. So what is the plan to reach out to our community look like? I know it's in there, but do you have any draft of what that plan is to reach out to them?
Not yet. So that's a part of this investment grade audit that we're diving into. That looks different for every district. And so we'll work with you to figure out exactly what the communication looks like, how we get that out there, and how we tie in students and community into the sustainability plan, but also the work that we're doing on the sites to modernize, beautify, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is this the district's action plan, or is this something Schneider is providing for us?
Yes, this will be the district's action plan. And so what we do is we offer sustainability leadership. It's challenging to create a sustainability plan if you haven't done one in the past. So we work hand in hand to figure out exactly what that looks like, identify your goals and priorities, and help you to, we draft it, but we help get your input to draft that final result of a district sustainability plan, climate action plan, even the naming. We'll get your input on what that looks like.
Well, I just want to know if we have something already in place that where we reached out, for vendors to submit a bid or something like that. Where did this start, I guess is my question. I know you said the last administration, but I do know we've had a facilities assessment since then. So I'm just wondering if that pairs with this. Was that part of, I guess, the building of this presentation?
Separate, but will be integrated. So a lot of the things that are identified probably in your facilities assessment are things that we will either identify or resolve with the recommendations we're making.
That's my hope, is that we just aren't redundant in our approach if we already paid for something, because that's a huge, it's going to be a big project. And if we already have something in place, I know we were supposed to hire a position in our plant services department. So I just really need to know a little more about where this was created. Was it our staff, or is this like something that came out of this assessment kind of thing? Just
Sure. So when I walked into the job, there were a number of assessments that had been done. When looking at like the physical plants at some of the places that we've leased, there were some kind of piecemeal assessments of like LED lighting and some other kind of mismatched. I don't want to say mismatched. Maybe not done with one end goal in mind. Like, where's the district going when it comes to all of our plant services, and where are we headed with sustainability and our efficiency for not just electric work, but our infrastructure for electric. So the goal of this is to take a look at a deeper dive at all the sites and really get a good sense about where we're not doing the best job with efficiency and effectiveness. And then once we have that assessment done, then it's really up to us to pick which to make that our Phoenix number one's plan. So that starts with a good baseline knowledge of where we're standing currently. So once we get to that point, we really will be able to kind of map out what we think is the best next steps. And I'm not a sustainability, I don't have a degree in environmental science, so we're going to rely on some of the experts, but ultimately the decision is going to be ours on what we want to see with the resources that we have. So I did take a look at some of those other I'm thinking of like one of our lease properties that had a whole bunch of needs, and those pieces do tie into where we're at as a district, but we don't have a big overarching framework of an audit to look at all the pieces that need to be looked at to have a enterprise-wide sustainability plan. So this kind of opens the door to let us do that and then make the decisions for what projects we want to take on moving forward.
And just to add as to how it came to the table, a lot of it is based on the input that we've received and the interest of sustainability, along with what Mr. Manley just shared, of us just finding different pieces of the puzzle and us really looking at where are we going with this and what does it look like in a holistic way, as opposed to we're going to add LED here, we're going to add turf there. We just really want to get a plan together that is very transparent and just really share, this is the need. These are our priorities, and this is how we're able to fund them. And so we have those great opportunities right now to put that puzzle together.
agreed. I just want to make sure that the whole picture is looked at and we aren't, just using the last few years of information, because our sites are really old. So again, if we've got information available, it would be great to use it. And I mean, just right off the back, I do need to share. I know I learned that AstroTurf it's hot. It doesn't help things stay cool. So if that's what we're doing to replace, space in our schools, I want to understand that this is evidence-based and focused solely on our students and not just a project for our lease space sites and everything. I
no.
want to make sure it's student focused and not, I don't want to get off track. So I
So
look forward to learning more about this.
From my experience, like doing a couple walkthroughs of our sites, there's always that one tiny patch of grass that has a pool of water that leaks onto the concrete that doesn't make a whole lot of sense whenever you're, so certainly not like AstroTurf. I know it also has my knees don't like AstroTurf either, but we're not talking about replacing green spaces or certainly not like reducing canopy spaces, but I think there will be a good blend of looking at where the water is being wasted on some of those odd small spots and being more efficient with that. And at the same time, why do we have a little patch of grass when we could have a tree or things that I wouldn't even think of that we need smarter folks to help point out, I think is kind of where we're headed.
Any further discussion? Thank you very much for bringing this to us and being here with us. And
Of course, thank you
being
all. Appreciate it.
patient.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward.
I do have a question. So with the IGA going forward, how will we know that it will comprehensively encapsulate all this feedback, or will it continue to try to capture feedback?
To clarify, how will I know it'll capture the feedback I'm receiving from the board
From the
or?
board, and then continue to receive feedback from the community.
So that will be as we launch. So we're launching the investment grade audit, and as part of that, launching the development of the sustainability and climate action plan. Part of that will be to identify a group that is, and it will potentially or likely, I'd love to see it include some board members to help provide regular, consistent feedback on what we're doing, why we're looking at it, and what the next steps are. So you can be as involved as you'd like to be, and I'd love to see you involved.
All right, and then what does the timeline look for, like, when we will finish this process?
That is a very good question. Still to be determined. It kind of depends on how broad we want to go. This is a several month, I'd say somewhere in the ballpark of 6+ months to do a full assessment. We're looking at, are there things we can get done sooner as part of this? LED lighting, for example, is something that's a no-brainer, that we can start early on that, get some of that done sooner rather than later as we continue the rest of the assessment. But it's 6+ months is probably what we're looking at to come back with those 2 deliverables I mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got one more question. If you could please explain the cost process, that would be really helpful, because I took this as an information and discussion item, not anything that was going forward and taking process. So I need to understand that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the investment grade audit, we did the initial assessment at no cost to identify what this might look like. The investment grade audit, that deep dive that we're going to spend 6+ months looking at. There's a lot of cost development, design, engineering that goes into that. Our goal is not to give you a document that sits on a shelf. Our goal is to deliver a document that it results in tangible projects, to get shovels in the ground, and Schneider Electric does the work for that. So the way the cost works is as long as the district does a project, there's no cost for the investment grade audit. That's just part of the design and development that goes into that final project. If, however, at the end of this 6 months, the district says, we changed our mind, we're not going to do a project, at that point, we split the cost of development and design, which I think we've set at $82,000 is what's in that investment grade audit. It's an exit cost, essentially, if you were to have us design, develop this whole thing and say, we're going to go a different direction.
Right. So when does that decision get made?
So as soon as we decide on a project to move forward, that would follow the same procurement rules. So with board approval. So none of this will be done in the dark. So as soon as the assessment's done, I'm sure we'll get input to look at what projects we're going to pick.
Mean, when is the assessment going? When is that decision going to be made? Is it already made? You're just telling us this is what you're doing? Or is it like, did the procurement process take place for this, or is it a proposal that was accepted?
So this was a proposal that, it's my understanding, came down the pike with those original pieces of walkthrough. And then the audit part came from that part. So it was a necessary next step to kind of find out what we need to do as a district to move forward.
And because this is an informational item, we're not seeking any action. So what we'll do is anything that needs to be actionable, we will either communicate with you if it's something that has already been a part of something else that's been approved, or we'll bring it to you for approval. I understand your question. And again, it's an informational item and you're not approving anything tonight.
Exactly. I just wasn't sure where I guess I didn't fully comprehend where we were in the process and what work would be going forward, not needing board review and approval.
Yeah, I think it's the excitement that took us there. So we don't want you to be confused with that. This is informational.
Okay, got it. Thank you very, very much for the clarification.
Can I get one more clarification? What was the amount that you said if we didn't move forward with the project and there was a split cost?
It's 82,000 and change.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move on to item H1. This is an actionable item. Do we have a copy to post?
Yes. We have Dr. Gonzalez that will be sharing with us the proposed calendar for fiscal school year 23-24.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Hagigat, our audience and cabinet members. This is a revised calendar. You approved a calendar a year ago for the next 3 years, but after the meet and confer process, the meet and confer process agreed to sub out 3 full-day teacher professional development days and teacher work time after our holidays. So those days, the teachers also requested that in those days, rather than just make them 3 days less, that they wanted to instead add back full days on days that were 4-day weeks. So this calendar represents 6 changes of half days. The half days now become full days. And it also represents the 3 full days that the teachers have requested. This does result in a 177-day calendar rather than a 180-day calendar. However, we have over the number of minutes that are required by the state for instructional hours. So we're still within the bounds to be able to provide instructional standards as required by ADE. So we're seeking your approval to accept this calendar for the calendar year of 23-24.
Can I motion to approve? Okay. Alicia Vink, motion to approve.
Roger Carrillo, I second.
Hearing no further discussion, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our motion passes and we can move on to item H2. Oh, actually, that one we have taken off tonight's agenda. So we'll move on to item I1. Any board requests this evening? All right, I've got one. I would like to ask that our superintendent and our board secretary get together on some communication tools to accommodate each board member's preferred way of being contacted, as well as their getting their district calendars organized. That way we have a fluid rest of the year as we transition into the summer period and going into our 8th grade promotion ceremonies. We are all on the same page and know where we're going, and it's just a more fluid process.
And with that, hearing no other board requests, we can move on to item I2, future agenda items. Any future agenda items?
Have we approved travel to Naleo already?
No.
I request that we put that on our future agenda item to
Perfect.
approve travel to Naleo in July, and then if anyone has any other conferences coming up, feel free to add those.
Agreed. All right, future agenda items from me. I would love to continue the celebration and follow Emerson's lead on Autism Acceptance Week and request administration give us a draft resolution about autism awareness and acceptance to adopt as a district. And I make that request so we kind of really own that responsibility and leadership work of making those kind of changes against sometimes what are harmful societal expectations. So if we own that work, it takes the onus and responsibility off of those that are individuals that are living with those disabilities, families, students, and adults. Secondly, I would love to request an update on how our district is supporting our high school, future high school enrollees, what numbers we have already enrolled and what we're doing to help make sure that they get enrolled. Are we hosting events, attending anything different? And kind of get some numbers on where they're going as well. And then also to make sure that those students are McKinney-Vento students that might have additional supports and needs transitioning to high school, that get completed and conveyed well in advance, so there's as much certainty as possible when they arrive at their new campus. And that's all I've got. Do we have any other future agenda items? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
Reggie Cario, I motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Alicia Fink, I second.
Yay. Thank you. Hearing no discussion, may we please have a roll call vote, Mrs. Valencia, to adjourn our meeting at 7:58 p.m.
Ms. Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Aye.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa,
Aye.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Aye.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye. With that, our motion passes and we will adjourn. Our next board meeting is May 9th here in the boardroom at 5:50.